ProWrestlingSheet.com.
What's up, everyone? It is Denise Salcedo. Welcome to Pro Wrestling Sheet. I am very excited to introduce to you my guest for today. It is none other than Ring of Honor's very own Hot Sauce Tracy Williams. What's up, Tracy?
Hey, not too much. Good to see you again, Denise.
I know. I'm so excited to talk to you again. I mean, I just feel like you've been doing such great stuff. So it's sort of cool just to circle back on what you've been doing since the last time we talked. But how are you?
I'm good, and thank you for saying that. Yeah, it's cool to circle back after, because I think last time we talked, the Pure Title Tournament hadn't even started airing yet, right? It was like coming up.
It was right at the beginning, like the early starts of the tournament. And so like now, like I said, a lot has happened. You're in the finals now. So how has this whole like journey been for you? Let's just start off there.
It's been huge. It's been really crazy. Like, it's one thing to do it because we physically did this in a bubble, in like a secret taping essentially, but now to see everybody finally getting the chance to experience it and to perceive it and give their thoughts on it has been a whole other ride to go on, which has been really rewarding in kind of a surprising way. Like, I was hopeful that it would work and that it would take off and people would like it, but to see all the positive feedback has just been so cool and so rewarding. And yeah, really special to see people reacting positively to a wrestling television program like this, which I think is different than anything else out there right now.
Oh, 100%. And here's the thing too, is that when we did our predictions, I was like, all right, you're going to make it. But now you're actually there. You're at the final. So kind of knowing that you're there and you're really just one step away from winning this tournament. How does that feel? And what kind of credit does that give you in terms of like, really just solidifying yourself as a professional wrestler? Like, how does that make you feel?
It's very rewarding, and it's kind of all sinking in now, because you try not to set yourself up for too much disappointment. When you've maybe got big things on the horizon, like you just look at what's right in front of you. Like when it was just coming up, I was like, okay, it's awesome to just be in the Pure Title Tournament. That's the first step, to have this match on this platform in this style. You always have the championship in the distance as like the big goal, but I never get ahead of myself. I'm always just looking at what's right in front of me. But now what's right in front of me is the championship. Now what's right in front of me is the finals, is this huge moment, is this huge culmination of this whole tournament and this whole resurgence of pure wrestling and Ring of Honor. So yeah, it's big. It's big, and it's a lot of pressure, but it's like the kind of pressure that you're glad to have because it's exactly where I want to be. And so, yeah, I wouldn't choose anywhere else in wrestling right now than right here.
And I love how you say it's where I want to be, like what I want to be doing, because that's awesome. And, again, you mentioned that nobody else, no other promotion in wrestling is putting something together like this. So for fans that are, haven't watched Ring of Honor yet or haven't given it a chance, like, what do you say to those people? Like, come in and, watch what we're doing.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you have to put your preconceived notions aside and just, set any thoughts you have aside about not only about Ring of Honor, but I think about wrestling in general, because like I said, it's different. And I think that you could show this to somebody who has preconceived notions about wrestling and who thinks that it's like super goofy and the kind of like crazy thing that they could never watch. And you could show them this and you might change their mind. So I think just come into it with an open mind and just view it for what it is. And I think it's something really special.
So now let's talk about some of the guys that you faced in this tournament. Obviously, you were in the A block, so you got to face guys like Russ Taylor, Fred Yehi, Jay Lethal, which, by the way, I loved your match with Jay Lethal. I thought it was really fantastic. But tell us a little bit about what it was like working with those guys and just really keeping your body, and the momentum in shape so that you can continue through with this tournament.
Yeah, it's been a rough road. Like that list of names is, nothing to shake a stick at. That's like pretty serious stuff, and I wouldn't have it any other way. I think it's so cool, the like eclectic field of people that were in the tournament. We were talking about that last time we spoke, and to get a chance to face off against three people who are so different but also sort of similar is really cool. And it's three different dynamics where, like, in the first round, Russ Taylor is somebody I had seen very little of and had definitely never wrestled before. And so that was like kind of eye-opening, new experience that sort of sets a fire under you. And then going into the next round against Fred Yehi is somebody from my past, somebody I've wrestled a bunch but hadn't seen in years. And so to see how much he's grown and to show how much I've grown and now get to meet back up in a tournament like this and do the thing that we both love to do, super awesome. And then in the next round had Jay Lethal, like you said, which was like my biggest match in Ring of Honor so far, potentially the biggest match in my career so far with the way it turned out, because I beat Jay Lethal with a submission in the middle of a Ring of Honor ring, which is like, that's something to hang your hat on in this company. And so that's a lot of momentum going into the finals. So yeah, it's been a crazy, crazy road so far. And keeping the energy up is definitely a struggle, especially with no crowd. Wrestling that many times is like, at a certain point when you're that exhausted, what's getting you through it is the fact that there's this raucous crowd there pushing you and cheering you on, and they've seen everything you've gone through to get to that point, and they want to see you keep doing it, and they're rooting you on. But you don't have that. All you have is whatever you can pull from inside of you to make that happen. So it was a really cool challenge.
No, and I love the fact that you mentioned that each opponent were sort of different in this tournament. Taylor, Yehai, and Jay Lethal, like they all brought something different out of you, I think. So that's been pretty cool. But, you mentioned the fact that you're not working in front of a crowd. Does that sort of, like, obviously everybody wishes they were in front of a crowd, but how different do you think that your matches would be, or is there any difference you feel that you would be displaying in your matches had there been an audience versus there not being an audience?
It's hard to say. I think a lot of the difference is in the first few moments of the match, I think, because you're kind of coming in cold. You do everything you can to warm up and get ready for the fight and all that, but it's so different when the bell rings and you don't have that extra energy from the crowd. All you have is what's in front of you. And so there's like a bit of a moment of shock there when things first start. But then once you get rolling and once you're in the midst of the fight and all the wheels are turning, you barely notice it anymore at that point because you're just so focused on the wrestling. But it's definitely a shock. And I think as the tournament went on, you get more and more used to that, which was nice. And so by the time, in the match with Jay Lethal that you just saw, I think we both felt the comfort starting to set in of like, we become used to the surroundings and yeah, but definitely a moment of shock when you first start.
But you know what, though? I think if the wrestling is good, it really, really distracts the viewer from, hey, there's no audience there. So, because you really get invested in the match. And I think that's how people feel, especially in a tournament like the Peer Tournament, where, these guys are doing such extra special things, a lot of storytelling, a lot of psychology in the ring. So I feel it distracts from that.
Yeah, I love that you said that because I agree with that. And I think it's really cool to see it working in that way because we've also had the advantage of Ring of Honor took a fair amount of time off where we had time to sit back and observe what was and wasn't working, while other people were in the position to have to figure it out. So that's kind of an advantage that we had, not to take anything away from anybody else because they were out there just throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks throughout like the first 6 months of this whole pandemic. And whereas we were able to sit back and look at what was working, and I think that really paid off because, like you said, we've noticed that when you do stick to the story in the ring and you do stick to an easy to understand struggle, that's what connects people and that's what distracts people from the fact that there's no crowd. Whereas if we were trying to go over the top and do the same sort of tropes that you see in wrestling where it relies so much on the give and take from the crowd, that stuff is really a struggle to make work in this environment. So it's really nice to see it paying off and see that this style is working with no crowd, as well as it can. Obviously, we'd love to have an audience there. We'd love for everybody to be able to come and see it. But I think it's really cool to see it working as well as it is.
So now you mentioned this, so I have to ask, there was a period where Ring of Honor was obviously not in action. They weren't doing anything. It's the start of the pandemic. Nobody really knew what was going to happen. What were your feelings during that time? Like, were you worried, like, oh man, like, is Ring of Honor going to be able to bounce back from this? Were at any point were you concerned about your future with the company and the company's future?
Yeah, I think everybody was because, the clock starts ticking. Especially with everybody in wrestling, you're always on a contract that's only so long, and so everybody's always in the mode of trying to prove themselves through whatever that year is. Everybody comes into the beginning of a new deal like, okay, well, this is going to be the best 2 years of my career because I have to make this work, and then that time is taken away from you, and all of a sudden the clock is ticking and there's no wrestling and there's no chance to prove that you're good. There's no chance to prove your value, and it just keeps going and going. But I think what that leads to is in that moment when you do get to come back, you've got all this pent up motivation. behind it. Is the kind of way I tried to look at it positively, because in certain moments you do worry. You can't help but worry when you're left sort of alone to your thoughts for that long and you're not getting to do the thing that gives you that validation. And especially like with not having crowds, a big part of what gives you that validation as a wrestler is that crowd response. And that is what shows your value. And so without that feedback, all you have is to pull from within, like I said. And so it was an experience in learning how to do that.
And not only that, it's something that's so totally out of your control. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's different. Like you can't say like, "Hey, run a show right now." Like you can't do that, or you can't say like, "Oh, this is what's happening with the pandemic." You don't know, so it's something that's really out of your control. And I like the fact that you mentioned that, you get alone, you're in your own head, you start thinking things, so many guys, obviously aren't wrestling the amount of times that they're used to wrestling, whether it be, in certain promotions or whether it be, wrestling indie dates. So you sort of see that people aren't getting, the amount of work that they normally get. So you start to notice a difference in that. And that can be, really scary, especially for a wrestler, because ring rust is a real thing.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And it's a different experience than being injured, because I like how you're saying it's so out of your control. Where like if you're injured, that moment where you get injured is out of your control. But from that point on, you know exactly what you have to do, and you can look at the path and look at the timeline and see, okay, I'm probably 6 months out from being able to wrestle again, and that really sucks. But you're 6 months out, and you have to heal, and the point where you're going to be able to get there. Whereas with this, it was just like, okay, it's like we all just got injury. We all just got time off, but we have no idea what the rehab is. We have no idea what the recovery time is. We're all just on the shelf. So yeah, really, really different. And I hope that, in the near future, things can get better for wrestling across the board. I really feel for the indies right now, because they're not being given the tools to do it safely. They're being left to their own devices, which is really tough for people who need to make things happen, and maybe don't have all the tools to do it in the safest way. So it's really tough to see. And I really hope that things can get better and that there can be a more clear path to being able to do it safely soon.
Exactly. And it's kind of like, all right, you see some of the major promotions, if even they're having a hard time with, really nailing the COVID, making sure that everything is set in place, really not making sure that, COVID doesn't spread, and we're still seeing issues with that. So, and given the resources that they have are so different from the resources that independent wrestling promotion has, it kind of really just, even though it sucks to say, it's like, you shouldn't be running right now. Like unless there's like a concrete, safe way to make sure that everyone is okay. But we haven't really seen that fully executed 100%. Everybody still has their flaws.
Yeah, it's a tough situation, because like I said, you feel for them, because they need something. They need to do it, and I think it's unfortunately like a pretty clear reflection of just what's going on in general in the country, to be honest, because that's how everybody feels, it's like, well, I need to make it work. I need to do something, but nobody's really being given the clear direction or the clear tools to do that in a way that is not potentially harmful. So yeah, it sucks to see, but I think you really, you can't even blame the people running the shows, because they're just doing what they got to do, and it's sad. But like I said, I really hope that soon we can see something change where they're able to do it in a safer way.
Exactly. So now going back to the peer tournament, I do want to ask, because you are in the finals with Jonathan Gresham, and Jonathan Gresham, he's no easy opponent. I think that's the best way that I can go ahead and word that. So tell us maybe what we can expect, or what your strategy is, going into this match and all of that.
Yeah, strategy is really tough against John. I think one of my main advantages, I mean, maybe not necessarily an advantage, but something I'm happy about, is that John is somebody that I've faced a ton. He is like a rival of mine that goes back years and years. We've wrestled for titles before, and I've won titles from John before. We wrestled for the Independent Wrestling Championship, and I took that title from him, and I held it for quite a while, and defended it against him as well. And so that's something that I'm taking in as a positive, as a push, as something that I see as, potential to turn into another victory. But at the same time, my first match in Ring of Honor was against John in a tournament, and he beat me in Ring of Honor in my first match there. So That's a tough one, but it's also something that I'm looking to correct and something that I'm looking to turn around and set, the rudder right on this ship and keep, sailing towards success and sailing towards proving that, I am the one to build on as the pure wrestler at Ring of Honor. So yeah, strategy is tough because like you said, John is not an easy opponent to defeat. And I know that, but at least I know what I'm getting into.
That's awesome. So now I do want to ask you, we're talking about Ring of Honor. We're talking about a lot of the things that they're doing, a lot of the differences that they're bringing to the wrestling landscape. So with that being said, who are some of the talents on Ring of Honor that you're like, you know what, people need to not sleep on this person. People need to keep an eye on this person, or more people in the wrestling world need to pay attention to this person. Who are some of those guys that you're like, obviously, like, don't sleep on this person?
I mean, there's definitely people in the pure tournament who I would really like to see become mainstays in Ring of Honor. First of all, I'd really like to see Wheeler Yuta get more of a chance to shine. I'd really like to see Fred Yehi being brought back and given a chance to shine. And I think people are agreeing with that in general that are watching it. So I'm just putting that energy out there. And as far as people in Ring of Honor who I think need, more spotlight, or who I think people should see, there's some really good talent coming out of the dojo right now in Ring of Honor. And I hope that soon they'll be given those chances to shine, especially with the way things are now, where a lot of the people in Ring of Honor, a lot of the top stars who have proven themselves as like these amazing wrestlers are in other countries and can't be brought in. And so the spotlight now needs to be shared. And maybe that can be an opportunity for these, young wrestlers in the dojo to step up and show what they can do. So I would keep an eye out for that. To give some names, Dante Caballero is really, really dope. I've seen him for a while trying to, get his footing and get started. He's somebody that really grinds really hard. I used to see him at the Evolve seminars and tryouts back when I was running those. And I always had my eye on him. And then he joined up with the Ring of Honor dojo. And I think he's getting ready to break out. So I would keep an eye on him, Dante Caballero.
That's really great. And you mentioned a lot of the young talent. For you, like, how does it feel seeing the up and coming talent and just seeing like what new stuff they're bringing to the table? Does it make you want to like just be even better, or like how does that work out?
Yeah, for sure. It makes me want to be better, but it also, it's inspiring in that strange way where it pushes you and it lights a fire under you. Not as like a competitive thing where you want to hold them back, but you want to see them succeed, and you want to be the one to test them sort of and see what they've got, because it's really cool to see people coming up, and especially to see people coming up that have a respect for the kind of wrestling that I'm obsessed with and the kind of wrestling that I love. And I think that's really cool to see coming out of the ROH dojo, especially they've got John as their trainer. So, they're being set up for success. John Gresham is training those guys. So looking forward to that.
Exactly. That's really great. And not only that, like, I always feel like, there's certain people that are like, oh, like, we don't want the younger talent to come up and start doing their own thing. But then there's people that really adapt to the young talent and, they incorporate that and really make good things come of it.
Yeah. And it keeps you younger too, sounding like a weird old guy, but like, I don't know, it keeps your head in the right place, I think, where, you don't want to separate yourself at all from the younger talent because, they're going to be the ones in the successful spots coming up soon. So you want to be familiar and you want those to be your peers, so that you're not like distancing yourself. You're spreading yourself around, which I think is the right way to go. So, yeah.
Exactly. You're like, fool the people. I'm exactly there,
Yeah, I'm one of these guys. I'm a young up and comer, just like these guys. Yeah, right.
Exactly. Now, obviously, we need to talk about EC3 as well, because he's just gone into Ring of Honor and he's, really putting the Ring of Honor roster on notice. What are your thoughts on EC3? Your thoughts on him coming into Ring of Honor, and what does that mean for the company and the entire roster?
Well, I try to look at it as a positive. I hope it gets some more eyes on the company. I guess maybe EC3 has people that are big EC3 fans and will follow him wherever he goes. I think that's the thinking. I hope it works out. I've heard a lot of what he's saying in Ring of Honor so far. And it's one of those things where there are certain points that I agree with. There are certain points that sound like they're up my alley, but I'm not sure where exactly he's coming from. You can word things in a way that gets people on your side at first, and then all of a sudden you blindside them with like, oh, well, this is why I was saying that stuff. And it turns out like they're a huge jerk and they want the opposite of what you want. So I'm waiting and seeing. And I think the most interesting thing will be to see what happens in the ring, because EC3 so far has talked a great game, but I haven't seen him wrestle in Ring of Honor ring yet. I haven't seen him go up against a Ring of Honor caliber professional wrestler. So I think that will be interesting to see, and it'll maybe be a new challenge for him. I'd love to see him in a pure rules match, see what he does in that environment. So I think that's the interesting thing, is that, okay, this is this new guy in Ring of Honor at the same time as Ring of Honor is putting pure wrestling at the forefront. Does he represent that? I don't know. Is he against that? I don't know. So we're going to have to see if that's a conflict or if that's, we mesh.
Well, with right now the wrestling landscape, every company, it seems like they're trying to, obviously trying to get eyeballs, trying to get people to watch the product. So you're in competition with all of the other promotions. Now, do you scope out the other talent? Do you scope out what the other companies are doing? What are some of the things that you like that you're seeing in wrestling in general?
I mean, yeah, I definitely keep an eye on everything. To sort of see what's working and what's not, and learn it from everybody. But also because I have so many friends that have just ended up in all these different promotions, which I think is awesome. And I think it's really cool that it's spread around so much. I just saw a tweet earlier today from Beyond Wrestling, pointing out how they have so many alumni that were mainstays in that company that have branched out and are on all different channels on TV right now, all different shows on TV right now, and it's really cool to see. So it's nice to be able to tune in and fire up whatever app or whatever TV channel and see my friends doing their thing, and be able to watch them from a distance, especially now when I can't hang out with them. So.
Yeah, and at least now you have sort of that time to make sure, like, oh, hey, let me go up and see what this person's doing. Let me see what this person's doing. Who are some of those guys that you're like, oh, you know what? I'm just really happy for them, even if they're on the competitor side? Who are some of those guys that you're just like, I'm so proud of what they're doing?
I mean, there's so many. The ones that come to mind immediately are Orange Cassidy and Drew Gulak. Orange Cassidy is really breaking out right now, which is really amazing to see, because he's been in wrestling for super long. He's been talented for super long and just kind of been, not overlooked, but just nobody just like lit the fuse and pulled the trigger on him. And now, AEW is pulling the trigger on him, and it's so cool to see. It's wild to be able to tune in on TNT on TV and like see one of your best friends wrestling Chris Jericho in the main event of a television show. It's like, okay, well, here we are. This is crazy. And then, same thing for Drew Gulak. We go back just as far back as me and OC do, and to be able to tune into WWE TV and see him doing his thing on there is just absolutely incredible. It's a really great experience, and it's I feel so lucky, that this is how wrestling has turned out for my peers and I. It's very fortunate.
And that the opportunities are really there for everybody to actually be able to make a living in wrestling. At least there's more opportunities than there was in the past, which is nice as well.
And for all different kinds of wrestlers, it seems like since WCW closed down way back, I always really liked that they had a really eclectic roster. And they were like, at a time, the biggest company and one of the top two biggest companies for a really long time. And they were giving opportunities to all sorts of wrestlers. They had a cruiserweight division that people look back on very fondly. They had wrestlers from Japan that were, getting big money, wrestlers from all over. So I think since that ended, it has been sort of a narrow path to success in wrestling. And it's really great to see that path start to fork again, and all these different roads open up for wrestlers of all different styles, all different body types, all different nationalities, all different characters, So yeah, it's really great to see.
I love everything that you just said, because it really is true. We are starting to finally see, more of a broadening, and for everybody. I mean, you can talk about the women. I mean, there's some of the people that are being really, really highlighted, in multiple companies. You can talk about, big guys, small guys, whatever, again, your nationality is. And I really do like that we are seeing that in wrestling. And that's good, because it keeps, it keeps the creative, juices flowing. You're not seeing the same matches over and over. You're not seeing the same stories being told over and over. So it adds, more fun and can attract more viewers or keep them engaged longer.
Yeah. And also, just to add on to that, just seeing people of all different types, of all different sexual orientations, all different gender identities and that sort of thing, being presented as just who they are and as just another character in this landscape, and not being sort of exploited for who they are or made to fill a role that is, negative or fits into some weird worldview of that. Just like all people being presented as like, these are the wrestlers, and they're here to wrestle. These are their interpersonal stories that they have, and here, get to know them. I think it's a really great step to take, and I hope that it can help to broaden the fan base of wrestling, and maybe even push out some of the more bigoted and horrible people that have somehow become wrestling fans over the years. I would love to see that those people no longer be able to enjoy these products for those reasons. I think that would be great. Or or open their mind and make them realize that that's not a problem, that all sorts of people are being involved in wrestling, and that's something that everybody in wrestling wants.
Exactly, 100% agree with all of that. Tracy, before we go, I have to ask, what are still some of the things that you want to accomplish, whether it be in Ring of Honor wrestling and wrestling in general, or even outside of wrestling, maybe something that you're working on right now, given the fact that, there really isn't that much to do when you're not working?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really interesting question. We were talking about goals before and keeping your eye on the goal in front of you. And obviously right now, the goal in front of me is the Pure Championship, but that plays into the bigger goal, which I think the bigger goal is to create this image of Ring of Honor in what I believe it should be, and as the wrestling company, as the true wrestling company that people can go to if they want to see true wrestling. I use the word true wrestling not to take away from what any other company is doing, but the whole point of there being multiple companies is that there are alternatives and there are different styles. And so to take the Pure Championship, and my goal would be to turn that Pure Championship into the top title in Ring of Honor and make Ring of Honor the place where the Pure Championship is number one. That's where you go to prove you are the best wrestler. And so that is the title to have to do that. And so that's what I want to do. I want to make ROH the place where pure wrestling thrives and the place where the Pure title is the number one top title in the company.
That is awesome. And honestly, for those of you guys that just want to watch, like you said, pure wrestling, true wrestling, whatever you want to call it, you just want to watch some good stuff, go and check out Ring of Honor and check out the Pure tournament. Again, I was watching some of those matches and I was just like, man, like there are, sometimes it could be like unconsidered under the radar, but the truth is that sometimes those are where you find some of the best things.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great way of putting it. It's like when people call something underrated, it's like it's kind of a backhanded compliment. It's like it's not underrated, it's just good, and maybe a lot of people haven't seen it yet. So it's just good. And in my opinion, yeah. So I definitely agree with you. I think give the Pure tournament a chance. Tune in on Monday. Watch live with all of us. We'll all be tweeting about it. You can find information about it at rohwrestling.com. You can find my new shirt that just came out on rohwrestling.com. I think it's really cool. I think speaking of, what sets ROH apart, they give you the creative freedom to do a lot of things. And so they allowed me to take my time and find a designer on my own to do this shirt. And, I didn't have to just like settle for what I was being given by creative or what I was being given by, the in-house people that they want to keep it so tight in. Like they really let you have freedom, which is cool. So, I feel good about the shirt. I think people should check it out. I'm personally giving away whatever cut I get from it to the Philadelphia Bail Fund. Don't feel pushed to buy it for that reason. You can just give to them directly. It's not like, it's not a big thing. I'm just putting it out there. But yeah.
That is awesome. I love everything that you are doing. Tracy, where can people follow you on social media?
They can follow me at @sauce_Williams, pretty much only on Twitter and Instagram. But yeah, that's the one.
Tracy, it was really awesome talking to you again. Like seriously, just really diving in and talking about the tournament and so many other things in the world of wrestling. It's awesome. Great to talk to you again. Guys, please do not forget to give this video a like and subscribe to Pro Wrestling Sheet for more interviews just like this one and some other wrestling news and so much more. So please do not forget to subscribe. In the description box, I will have all of the links where you can follow Tracy at and watch Ring of Honor and so on. But other than that, we will see you guys later. Thank you so much, everybody. Bye.
ProWrestlingSheet.com